So let me say, first of all, it's personal and it's about the Heart Sutra. Is a good friend of mine, is a good Dharma friend, long-term Dharma friend, is dying, probably another day or two. So if that happens, I am on call to help bathe her body after her death and to do the appropriate rituals, because she's a Buddhist priest. I mean, that's why it's appropriate. You can do anything you want. And to help set up visitation for people to come and sit with her body for 2 days in their home. So I did this with another Zen friend, is I just carry my phone with me on all the time and at night, and I just said, if you call me, I'm there. So if she calls me, I'm there, and you all will be fine, and we have Thursday covered if that does happen. The other part of it is it so clear why you do the Heart Sutra when somebody's dying? Because they're coming apart. I mean, we're coming apart all the time. We're birthing and deathing. It's just really clear when you go and visit her to watch. You watch, it's completely Layla, and whoa, it's looking less and less like Layla. And so you chant the Heart Sutra. So, I mean, in the Buddhist tradition, there's plenty of things you could do and chant. I really want to say that. But in this tradition, you chant it because it helps the person understand and remember, because, like we've all been chanting it, is like, oh, I was never solid anyway, so I can just more and more fearlessly let go into it. And it helps. And of course, it helps us now, because I can get solidified real fast when I'm reactive, and then I remember, oh, wait a minute, if I could take a breath and come back, there's a little more room here for everybody else in the world, and for mystery and wonder and love, and so I'm really glad we're doing the Heart Sutra at this time. And I really want to, the Heart Sutra is, I feel like we've laid a good ground listening to people at the practice period T, and I really want to go, so the first thing is, the overview is there's an invocation of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of compassion, who's coursing in the Buddha's meditation, who's coursing in deep meditation, and sees that there was never any solid separate self anyway. Never was, never will be. And so in that way, samsara, which is the wandering through the 6 realms, which we've studied, of the hungry ghosts and the hell realms, and we're all going in and out of those states of mind all the time, is that it's always the world of peace and harmony and love is the nature of this world. It's just we all get a little confused, or a lot. Good ground going into this next week to remember. Sit on the ground, breathe. So then the next thing, which we're going to do today, and we're going to do on Thursday, and for some period of time, is that there is an examination of all the major conceptual categories that were set up and then deified within Buddhism, because they were set up as explanations to help people de-solidify, and then because human beings being what they are, we solidified and started thinking all this stuff must be true. And then of course that's how religious wars happen, and anyway, you get all of this. So it takes all of the early Buddhist terms and says, not this, not this, not this, not in a sense of negation, but in a sense of don't get stuck there. Keep going. Now, the assumption is, of course, that if you're chanting the Heart Sutra, or we're chanting the Heart Sutra, that you knew all of these categories. Well, I love doing this because I've been doing this for a long time, and every time I do it, I go, wow, And then I study them again, and I get them a little bit more. So we're going to do the Skandhas today, and we're going to do the Skandhas today, I promise. So I'm going to watch the clock, and then we'll go back over it. And so it declares that the 5 skandhas and the sense organs and the 12-fold chain of causation and the 4 noble truths is don't get stuck on them. It's the finger pointing at the moon. So we'll go over each one of those in this time, not today, but 5 skandhas, the 5 aggregates. We're going to do that. Oh, we didn't, never mind. And then it concludes with the mantra is a bodhisattva relies on prajna paramita, this beautiful mantra, gate, gate, going beyond what you think the world is while you're completely in it, but going beyond all conceptual categories. That a bodhisattva courses in emptiness and lives inside of reality, not outside of reality, thinking I'm over here and it's or you are over there, or my inside is different. I mean, there's a self. There's a sense of self. We're going to get to that in a moment. It's like, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, 5 skandhas and the 5 aggregates. Instead of seeing our experience in terms of what we like or dislike, we understand our experience in terms of the skandhas. Out there is a creation of our mind. If we all looked out there and said what was out there, there'd be some agreement, but you know what? Because of our karmic conditioning and everything else, we'd all tell a slightly different story. Or if we saw an accident, that's why it's so complicated. So our experience comes in through our sense organs and our consciousness, and through me, and for what the world is to us. We are interpreting the world all the time. All the time. And of course, then when there's group mind and politics takes over and tells you what the right view is, and then everybody starts signing up, then we know how that can get dangerous, like it is in these times. So, a way of analyzing human experience and dividing our experiences, it divides our experiences into categories or skandhas of form, feeling, perception, formation or impulses, and consciousness. You saw that in the Heart Sutra, right? But in fact, inside and outside, subjective and objective is one experience. It's flowing, it's moving all the time. So the Abhidharma people, the early Buddhists who did all of this, you can study the Abhidharma, which is like, oh my goodness. Darlene got into the Abhidharma. I just always thought, wow, how brave. So the early Buddhists, they said skandhas is what constitute a personality. It's what we think of as me. So the antidote then is practice. I'm just going to read you some different interpretations, and some of them I've forgotten who said what, because that's the way my notes become. They all start flowing together. Is to be more intimate with your experience and to look at what is physical, to look at feelings that arise, to look at the reactions to your experience, to look at your perceptions, and to look at the sky-like experience awareness in which all of these things are taking place. That's what happens in Zazen. You sit down. There's moments where it's just completely wide open, and things are rising and passing, and there's coming and going, but no coming and going, this wide field. And then you also get to experience what happens, like if a reactive thought keeps coming up, and how solidified and how you just, whoa, karma, whoa. And you take a breath, and there's space. So Red Pine says, skandhas provide everything we need in our spiritual exploration. They are not only equivalent to what we normally think of as ourselves, they are equivalent to the entire universe as we experience it. The skandhas include all of creation. It's just all coming and going through each one of us, and then we're saying, this is what's happening. The whole universe is right here. Inner cells, outer cells. It's just wonder. So this is what Avalokiteshvara is looking down on and describing in the Heart Sutra. I like this one. This is from Red Pine. Watching the time. The Buddha saw 5 skandhas as a person's experience of the world from 5 different perspectives. A skandha refers to a tree trunk. Now, is this cool? We just keep coming back to look at the world. It's all here. Buddha views the universe of our awareness as supported by these 5 trunks or pillars, or as consisting of these 5 aspects, which are separate in name only, and each of which exhausts everything of which we are aware from a different point of view. I was thinking, so maybe it's like the redwoods. You know, the redwoods sprout. They're not separate at all. They're completely interconnected, and there's different pillars. Or the story of the elephant, where you go around. There's a Buddhist story. You go around, and one wise person takes the front leg, and the other takes the back, and the other says the tail. Or you just grabbed onto one redwood tree and said, "No, this is it." But you missed the whole world. To just be aware of what are you grabbing hold of here. Not as shame or blame, but in a beautiful, actually, normalization of this is what human beings do. Layla said to me, my friend who's dying, I walked in to see her. She's in her bed, clearly dying. It was I mean, I stayed for about an hour, and we talked of many things. But the first thing she said to me when I walked in, she must have she looked right at me and she said, "Blink, blink." Blink. Don't waste this life. When someone dying says that to you, it has a power. It goes that fast. Don't waste it. Pay attention. Wake up. Okay, so the first skandha, form, which is rupa. It's what we perceive of as solid. You can't tell me that's not solid. And look deeply. It's the presumed outside world in contrast to what we presume is an inside world. The root word of form or rupa is that which can be molested or pushed out of shape. Is that interesting? Every time you're getting pushed out of shape, that's probably a really good indication that you just solidified. So the traditional focus on form is the focus on the body, because it's what we most identify with. Is like, what do you mean I don't have a body? I have a body. I look at Layla, she has a body, but you know what? That body ain't the body she thought it was. She was a really strong bicycler, and 8 months ago. So Red Pine says it includes not only appearances, but the means by which they are apprehended. So everything becomes subjective from our own experience. So it includes the powers of eyes, ears, nose, remember our nose, squeaking the nose, tongue, skin, and the domains in which they function. So eye has sight, ear has sound, smell has nose, taste has tongue. I'm going to get all confused in here. And feeling. So the thing that's really different about Buddhism is it's not just 5, but the 6th actually is, the mind is actually considered a sense organ, because everything's being made sense of through the mind. All these sense interactions are happening, but the mind, consciousness, is putting it all together. Okay. So essentially, form is established to give meaning to the mind. It does not represent a separate reality outside of the mind. You just be alive in a flow of form, perception of form. So Buddha then went on with an analysis from the inside, which he divided into 4 more skandhas. The next one is feelings, which is a little different than what Western psychology does with feelings. That's one of our additions to this, is filling out the realm of feelings. It's Vedanta, and it begins with sensations. Vedanta derives from the root word of to know or to experience. It's our evaluation of form. So you see form out there, and you begin to immediately like it, don't like it, or neutralize. It starts to, or neutral. It's like there's this arising of something, and then we're immediately trying to grab hold of it and categorize it and put it someplace. Because we like to be in control, right? Because this self wants to know what's going on, and it wants to be safe, and so it's our experience as a process of evaluation. Thich Nhat Hanh calls all of these 5 skandhas rivers, which is kind of beautiful. It's the river of form, or the river of feelings and sensations. You can sit in zazen and just feel the river, the rivers. So here's what Red Pine says. It's the deep, the skandha of form, Vedanta, sensation, is the deep unconscious. This all happens before it ever comes to conscious awareness. When you're sitting sometimes, and especially when you sit longer retreats, you can sort of, it's like being a cat at a mouse hole. No, but that's not, we should use something different. But anyway, it's like you watch it really carefully and you can see it start, it's like something starts to arise, and then, do I like it? Do I not like it? Or is there just kind of a neutrality of, so most of the time, things are either, most of the time we're neutral on this level because we're not even conscious of it. It's just going on so far beyond, so far below our awareness. But you can also notice, wow, I really like that. It's like I go to Screamin' Mimi's. Wow, I know which ones I really like. Or, ooh, what would that? So, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? It's really a good thing just to pay attention to. It's really helpful just to name it as that. Okay, the third is, if you're going to sleep, it's okay. If you're starting to get foggy, you just do this forever, and you just, every time it goes in a little bit deeper. Is the river of perception, or sanja, which is derived from together or to know. So the river, the sensation, you have this thing that arises as form. You have this feeling about it, and then all these images and representations, interpretations start to come up around it. First you liked it, you didn't like it, you didn't even notice it, but then everything's kicking into gear. It's like, whoa, we got a hold of something now. So it provides a framework that allows us to make judgments and to objectify or make substance of our experience. We see it, we perceive it, and then we call it some object. So there's a sorting and a grading of experience and their transformation into objects according to their category, which is really interesting. This comment, which I like, is it allows us to manipulate our sensations so we see what we want. Pleasant? Unpleasant? Neutral? Put it into a category. Oh, a million different things, images arose in that probably if you notice. So it's interesting that it allows us to manipulate our sensations so that we see what we want and what we don't want to see.
Say that again.
We can manipulate our sensations so that we see what we want to see and what we don't want to see. This is how we create our own reality. Why you can have different people from different cultures look at the same thing and see things really differently because their conditions are different. This is why somebody in trauma would look at a situation or had trauma in their background would see something that you and I... Do you ever notice? It took me like 40 years, I'm embarrassed, to notice that my husband sees things really different than me. It's shocking, ongoing. He doesn't agree with me all the time. And on an unconscious level, I know we're both, you know, I have my way of perceiving. He has his way, but then we can take a breath and know that a little bit more because there's more space. So, this is dependent on forms and feelings and perceptions, and then what comes next is the river of impulse, or formation, the power of formation or will or volition, which is sanskara. Once we make an interpretation, we put it together in our personality, and we're constantly putting the world together and sure that it's what's going on. It's why it's so hard to change. I mean, we have put the world so firmly together in this time. And depending on what you think you are, or what political party, or who you listen to, or your conditioning, or it's so important. I think it's so important of what we can do as Dharma people is to I'm really sure how I'm going to vote, how I did vote. Please vote. Please vote. And I don't have to shut my eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, skin, heart to the perception of the other. And we don't have to attack each other. And we don't, I mean, there's just, this is the way. The essence of the Heart Sutra, the Dalai Lama. This isn't just Zen, this is Mahayana. I'll read you some from the Dalai Lama, I think, on Thursday. But he just says this is how you make a peaceful world. You just notice this. Wake up in the midst of it. Okay, our karmic, so the river of impulse formation is our karmic repository of all that we have previously intended, whether in thought, words, or deeds. And it provides us with a prefabricated guideline or impulse or strategy from the past. It's like, got it. Got it. To help us perceive and deal with the world, both inside and outside as we experience it in the present moment. Interesting that the Savastivadins, the Abhidharmas, listed 52 kinds of habitual behavior patterns. They had a list of, Buddhists love lists, especially early Buddhism. 52 kinds of habitual behavior patterns. We have the precepts. The precepts say, you know, you might want to look in this area of behavior patterns, because I think most human beings over time, you probably just look. But then you begin to notice it on a really visceral course in meditation. It's like, do not kill. Oh, no, I don't kill. What is it to affirm life? What is it when a killing impulse arises? Study it for the sake of all beings. This is important. This sounds like lists, but you know what? This is saving all beings, and my phone just went off, but she didn't die yet. Okay, this is my life the next few days. Ellen knows. Yeah. Okay, so the way that we know all of this is the fifth skandha, the river of consciousness, which is to divide, or vijnana, and the knowledge that comes from the separation of subject and object, which we're doing all the time to perceive. That's just how we see through two eyes. We see through duality. Something that Norman Fisher said that kind of tickles me as I remember it is he said somebody asked him to teach a class on non-duality. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. Because Because you can't, non-duality isn't a thing. It's like the minute you divide something up into duality and non-duality, you're already off and running on it again. Notice, we have two eyes, but a bodhisattva, a Buddha, sees with two eyes and one eye simultaneously. And that's what we're training ourselves to do when we touch the ground, when we touch the earth. To be here in the midst of all of it, and it's moving, and it's ungraspable, and you can't. And we're doing it all the time. So, consciousness is me. The ability to be aware of anything, but always something. Form, sensations, perceptions, memories of a self, and consciousness is the awareness in which all of this is happening. If we were to study in another class, Alaya, which maybe you've heard of, there's 8 consciousnesses in Buddhism, another list, and Alaya is always the base of it, but that's another time. Okay. So in terms of the world as we actually experience it, we begin with, oh, wait a minute, I didn't want to read that. Basically, the skandhas represent an attempt to exhaust the possible paths we might take in search for a self, or for something permanent, or pure, or separate in the undifferentiated flux of experience. Because that was the other thing, is early Buddhists then started setting up this pure world that was separate from this world. And the Mahayana came along and said, wait a minute, this is it. This is it. There is no separate place to get to. There is nothing separate. It's just this, but it's different than what you think it is. But we're always looking at the world and looking for something we can call our own. Oh, so here I was gonna. It's all the ways we look for something real, and yet they're not separate from what is real. Okay, so I'm going to just read you a little thing from Red Pine, and we're going to do service. Ching Chu says the Madhyamaka Karika. Madhyamaka is mind-only school. There's so many layers you can go into here, but Madhyamaka is early. We'll study it because there's a new book out Ben Connolly did that I think, and he's good at this. Mind only is that you're creating everything with mind, and you let go into big mind. So what I call me is the combination of the 5 skandhas, not something that is fixed. It is like when we put posts and beams together to make a house. If we take the posts and beams, if we take away the posts and beams, there is no house. Also, inside a house that has been dark for 1,000 years, a person doesn't realize there are jewels or sense the presence of demons and thieves. But once a lamp is lit, the darkness vanishes and everything becomes clear. Thus precious stones appear when the water is clear, and the moon shines bright when the clouds part. Kanze, early Buddhist scholar, really good one to read, not easy, but recommend, says the first step towards wisdom consists in getting the skandhas into view. First step is the skandhas, rivers. We're just rivers of form, feeling, perception, impulse, consciousness. This requires considerable knowledge, practice, and skill, but it is indispensable basis for all that follows. Now, I have to very humbly say, I am a Mahayana practitioner by nature. It's the way my mind works. Other people are Theravadan practitioners. It doesn't matter which gate you come into. And I have felt really, really humbled being with Theravada and Vipassana practitioners who their entry gate is through the Skandhas. And it's like when they say the Skandhas, it's like they know it, because that's the way it's not like they don't sit zazen, but it's I don't know. They you know how you can know the same thing in different ways? Different entry gates? The 5 skandhas are for Vipassana. If you went to Spirit Rock, and my guess is there would be lots of classes there on form, feeling, perception, impulse, consciousness, and it's a good thing to know. For me, and I think in general, Mahayana practitioner, is when you sit zazen, you begin to have the experience of you're not solid the way you thought you were. And things are bubbling up and moving, and form and feelings and perceptions, and like it and don't like it, and memories and karmic formations, and you can just sort of watch it all come and go. And then when you study the 5 skandhas, it's like, oh, that's what that is. That's a way to name this experience. That's all. And then it's like, well, then I guess we're all on the same page. We're just doing it a little bit differently. Okay, for now? So then we're going to have the experience of form, feeling, perception, impulse, consciousness, just by Zen puts a lot of emphasis on forms. You put your body, you bow, you put your body into forms. You bow, you chant, that you hit the bell at a certain point. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't like it, sometimes you get it right, sometimes it's like this or it's like that, and sometimes you think, oh, I did it right before, and now, but you just keep going, and more you like enter this dance of everything. So it really is giving us something to fit our bodies and hearts and minds into, so that we can let go and just experience the whole universe acting through us. That's all. And then there's the feeling of, I'm not separate from you anyway. And yes, you are. But there's more and more of a feeling of, this is way more porous than my little mind keeps telling me. So we're going to, I'm going to stand up and